reden über Bier, ob in Flensburg oder Trier, denn wir alle lieben Bier.
Warum eigentlich Trier?
Na, wegen des Reims.
Hallo und herzlich willkommen zu einer neuen Folge von Hopcast, dem Craft Beer Podcast aus Hamburg. Wir sind wie immer Regine
und Stefan
und begrüßen euch recht herzlich zur mittlerweile 33. Folge. Diesmal haben wir mit Henok von Omnipollo gesprochen.
Henok Fentie, ein Teil des Omnipollo-Teams aus Schweden. Und der zweite Teil heißt Karl Grandin aus Stockholm, ist Designer. Der macht das Design von Omnipollo, Logo, Design der Flaschen. Und Henok ist der Mann der Braut.
Genau, und der befand sich in Hamburg, weil nämlich am 10. Oktober das Opening sein sollte der Omnipollos-Bar in Hamburg.
Sein sollte, korrekt. Die liegt hier in Hamburg in einem recht hübschen Viertel, nämlich Schanze unweit des nicht unlegendären Ladens Erikas Eck. Nachtschwärmer, die schon mal in der Schanze unterwegs gewesen sind, werden den vielleicht kennen. Und des Craft Beer Stores, der ist auch nicht weit weg, sprich die Schanzenhöfe. Und dort sollte dann am 10. Oktober die Chose beginnen, aber es ähnelte irgendwie mehr eine Abrissparty, als dass es eine Opening-Party war.
Ja, die Armen hatten vorher noch einen Wasserschaden und deswegen haben sie aber, weil sie schon alles geplant hatten und weil es der erste Braupub von Omnipollo ist, der außerhalb von Schweden eröffnet wird, haben sie nämlich alle Mitarbeiter auch dahin geflogen.
Da waren sehr viele Menschen, die gebrandet waren. Es war eine internationale Geschichte und wir haben auf der Straße gefeiert. Man muss die Feste feiern, wie sie fallen. In diesem Fall fielen sie vielleicht nicht ganz so günstig. Das tat dem Ganzen aber keinen Abbruch. Es war eine muntere Party, eben mehr draußen als drinnen. Die Zapfanlagen standen auf so Bierzeltgarnituren. Boden war noch nicht verlegt. Ich glaube, selbst das Fenster, durch das die Biere jetzt rausgereicht werden können, musste nochmal ausgewechselt werden. Also da war noch eine Menge zu tun. Aber das Ganze ist Geschichte. Inzwischen hat der Pub eröffnet. So richtig.
Ja.
In vollem Ornat.
Und da Henok diese Woche auch noch wieder sozusagen übermorgen auch noch wieder nach Hamburg kommt, dachten wir.
Am Donnerstag, den 7.
Genau, passt doch dieser Podcast dazu perfekt.
Ja, genau. Er bringt eins seiner abgefahrenen Biere mit, nämlich das Anagram Cheesecake. Das Ding ist, ich vergesse immer die Namen von diesen
Die sind aber
Bieren.
auch nicht unkompliziert.
Die sind echt nicht unkompliziert. Man denke an das Anagram Blueberry Cheesecake Stout, an das Gideons Pancake Stout. Und ich glaube, von diesem Anagram Cheesecake Stout kommt jetzt die Barrel-Aged-Variante am Donnerstag nach Hamburg. Und die
bringt er persönlich im Flugzeug mit.
Im kleinen Keg. Und die hat 15 Volumenprozent Alkohol.
Das ist natürlich wirklich ganz ordentlich.
Das wird eine gute, knackige, kurze Party für den einen oder anderen vielleicht. Ja.
Nun gut, davon wird man wahrscheinlich auch nicht unbedingt einen halben trinken.
Ja, wenn man schlau ist, vielleicht nicht.
Ja, genau. Das ist das Gespräch. Das Gespräch konnte natürlich nicht in dem Braupub stattfinden. Der war ja noch eine Baustelle in dem Moment, als wir kamen. Wir haben es in einem Café um die Ecke geführt und auch gemerkt, dass dieses Café dafür nicht der beste Platz ist, weil es war ganz gut besucht und zwischendurch geht immer die Cappuccino-Maschine an. Insofern hoffe ich, dass ihr dem einigermaßen folgen könnt. Das Gespräch ist natürlich auf Englisch. Aber ich denke, das haut schon hin. Was haben wir sonst noch? Wir haben wie immer Biere getrunken. Eins von Orval und eins von, das muss ich tatsächlich ablesen, das kann ich mir nämlich nicht merken, das Lakritz von Göteborgs von der Nia Brüggerie. Nya, genau, du kannst Schwedisch.
Nya Brüggerie, ein bisschen, ja.
Du hast
das
da
Bier
Vorteile.
Wurde uns gestiftet von einer Dame, die sich mit Bier sehr gut auskennt. Hallo Sünje, vielen Dank für diese Bierspende. Dafür hat sie ja auch einen Tag mit dir gebraut.
Ja, genau.
Also die muntere Bier-Community, die vernetzt sich hier weiter. Man muss auch sagen, es ist einfach eine nette Community, das nur am Rande. Also
Absolut.
Ich habe da bisher wenig schlechte Leute in dieser Community getroffen. Und auch Henok, muss ich sagen, war übrigens ein super nettes Gespräch. Ein ganz unkomplizierter,
ja,
total freundlicher, netter Kerl.
Total Sweetheart, ja.
Ja.
Genau, dann hat uns noch ein Mensch angeschrieben vom letzten Podcast, wie man verschiedene Dinge ausspricht.
Oh ja, Maurice.
Wir haben es ja nicht so mit die Französisch.
Wir hatten es definitiv nicht mit dem Französisch und ich glaube, wir haben nichts richtig ausgesprochen von diesen französischen Bieren aus Wallonien aus, Achtung, nicht Namur, sondern Namur.
Da ist man 2 Tage in Namur gewesen und wusste gar nicht, dass es so heißt.
Ist auch schade, ne? Vielleicht fahren wir da ja nochmal hin, da sind wir besser. Dann wissen wir nämlich auch, dass das eine Bier nicht Hüb ausgesprochen wird oder Hup, sondern Hup.
Hup?
Hup.
Mit dem H?
Mit dem H.
Nicht Up?
Hup, hat er geschrieben.
Okay. Ja.
Wie auch immer. Danke, Maurice. Wir freuen uns immer, wenn es Post gibt und wenn auf Fragen von uns auch geantwortet wird. Das ist total super. Danke,
Hammer.
danke. So, und jetzt haben wir die Biere erwähnt, die wir verkostet
Termine
haben.
gibt es auch nach dem Interview.
Und ich würde sagen, wir lassen jetzt einfach mal Henok zu Wort kommen und wir wünschen euch ganz viel Erfolg beim Zuhören.
My name is Henok. I work for and at Omnipollo, Swedish brewery, and we're building a bar in Hamburg.
Yeah, and the bar is still some sort of construction area.
Yeah, you could definitely say that. We decided to open anyway. We're sort of trying to see our company as an open source operation, so inviting people early on in the process is always more fun than being completely finished.
Yeah, but you had a great night yesterday, everybody told us.
Amazing. It was a fantastic, very memorable night. This is the first international beer bar that we built, so it's a big moment where the entire team of 11 people came from Sweden to the bar opening, so we were very happy about that.
Yeah, cool. Sounds great. And you had the Germany's favorite beer, Freibier, as I heard.
Yeah.
Through the magic window.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Out of the window to the street.
Yeah, I think in Sweden it's illegal to serve beer in the street.
Okay.
And as soon as I heard that you're actually allowed to take your glass outside, this idea of being able to serve through the window became very appealing.
Okay.
The plan is actually that we will be serving through the window as well.
Okay.
So you will be able to pass by and ask for a beer through the window, even as we've opened.
Great concept.
Time will tell. But it's an exciting idea.
So why Hamburg?
Well, we've always dreamt about going abroad, so we were a Swedish operation, and as soon as we built our first bar, we were thinking about what could be a next big step internationally. So and there are a couple of markets that we've looked at over the years, and I think that a common trait for these markets has been that we want to go somewhere where there's a rich history of beer and brewing. England is one of those countries, Germany is another one, and so on and so forth. We have a really good partner in Germany, so the choice to do this first was pretty easy due to that. But it's also, it's a wonderful thing for a company like ours, a young company, trying to innovate what beer is and so on and so forth, to be sort of indwelled in this very traditional beer market as well. We're very serious about our craft, but we also like to experiment, and I thought that the contrast would be a fun thing.
Is your biggest markets are Sweden and the USA?
Correct, yes.
Is Germany the third biggest market?
No, England is our third biggest, and China and Japan are pretty big too.
Oh, okay.
Then comes Germany.
Oh, okay.
So, but definitely rising. I think we've probably doubled the amount of beer we've sold to Germany this year, even before we opened the bar.
Okay.
And I anticipate that being here more often, having a physical representation in terms of a bar, will hopefully even drive that further. So, we're definitely focusing on Germany together with sort of these other 5 markets.
Your partner here is Brausturm.
Correct. Yes, exactly. Yeah. We also have a part owner in our company that lives in Hamburg. So it's also, he wanted a bar here. He wanted a bar.
Is it Matthew?
No, it's a guy called Jesse. He was there yesterday. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Matthew is the one who is boss in the new bar.
Correct. Yeah. So he used to run Brewdog Berlin.
Yeah.
And we've been extremely lucky to be able to.
He knows the business.
Yeah, get him over here.
Okay.
And so we read from one of your Facebook posts today. You still pinch yourself and say, "Is this happening?" So
absolutely,
something like still a glorified homebrewer.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, we've started out as homebrewers, and we released the first beer roughly 10 years ago, and had been homebrewing for a year and a half before that. So I mean, just releasing a physical product was a big step. You know? And every time we do things which are, you know, of this magnitude, like opening a bar or going to a new country for a beer festival. We were in Tokyo last week. I remember like a year ago I'd never been to Tokyo. Now I've been there 3 times because it's such an exciting prospect to see people wear the t-shirt and drink the beer and have an idea what they like and so on. We have like it's like we're kids again, you know? So absolutely. I think the whole team were blown away by this idea that we'd have a bar, you know, somewhere else.
So, and what was your personal moment to get into craft beer? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I worked for an entrepreneur in Sweden that had a side project which was to like an English-style pub concept, and I started working for him. And I did everything for 6 years. But I was the youngest person working there, so the way for me in was to learn more about the beer. You know, I didn't drink whiskey specifically. These were the 2 sort of spirits that they were serving, and I just got thrown into it via a job and tried to become really good at it. I mean, it was pretty. This is 2006. Yeah, 2006. And so it was a very niche thing in Sweden with craft beer. Everywhere you'd go, you'd get light lager beer, and you know, I like lager beer, but it was the same lager beer everywhere. And it became sort of a mission through the building of these pubs to create variety. And as I started experimenting with homebrewing at home, this idea of maybe doing something of my own came to life.
And your partner, you're doing Omnipollo with, was so much into beer as well in the beginning, or did you have to persuade him?
He's the artist.
I mean, luckily he liked it. Yeah, luckily he liked it. I mean, we met very, very early on. Like I had a concept for a beer, and we test brewed a bit, but it needed to look and feel different on other levels. And so a common friend of ours, so Karl is my partner's name. A common friend of Karl and mine introduced us through sort of me panicking around like what the hell this beer was going to look like. And she basically said you should meet this guy. He's an interesting artist, and we hit it off. He drew a couple of sketches on a napkin more or less, and I was like, if beer can look like this, you know, we're going to change things.
What was
it's very colorful.
And the first beer was a blonde ale, fermented with a champagne yeast, and dry hopped lightly with some American hops. So it was like a very much a gateway beer, you know, like refreshing, sparkling, funky design, trying basically to take craft beer from English pubs in Sweden, which at the time was sort of the commonplace for those beers, into a nightclub setting. That was like the idea of it. And that's how we started out. Like we basically sold it to, you know, fine dining restaurants and nightclubs.
Some fancy stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think that in that setting, like beer wasn't fancy at all, and so it was. I wouldn't say it was a super hard sell to like the curious Michelin star restaurant. Like they always want to find out what's new and what's good. But the idea that somebody would like grab a bottle as a serious alternative to a lager beer was a bit of a stretch in the beginning. But, I mean, we spent 3 years before. At least I quit my day job, so it was like slow build, like one place to the next, one beer after the other.
Your beers are quite expensive in Germany. Is it in Sweden? Alcohol is very expensive anyway. So, is it in Sweden much more expensive than a normal beer, or is it?
That's a very good question. So you're right. It's taxed very heavily, alcohol in Sweden, and so the difference doesn't become that big. Like even cheap beer is expensive. So the step isn't as big. You know? I think here it will be more of a challenge because we're up against like very, very, very low prices. I mean, we've traveled countries in these 10 years where beer is cheaper than water. You know, it's always a challenge. I think that what we try to do is we try to charge our beers with something extra. I mean, I would guess every brewer would say that, but I truly believe that, you know, an Omnipollo beer is an experience, and so paying a bit more for it makes sense from that perspective. I think where it's tough is when you run retail to have like something for everybody. Like somebody comes in and says, I just want a beer. We also want to be able to offer that. That's why we always stock like lager beer on our first tap. And in Germany, we were also going to work with Brauer, like to have like their like lager beers on tap as well. Yeah, exactly. And so it's the idea that it should be a living room, you know, not like a library with, you know, a bunch of beer knowledge being thrown around.
Good choice, Mouse Boy.
I love those guys, and they were there yesterday, and it was fantastic.
I saw the bottles standing there. Your lifestyle is special. You have two places where you live, or?
Correct.
Two home
Absolutely
places.
Right. Yeah, it's a pretty special setup. I was saying that earlier. My wife works for the foreign ministry, so she applied for a job in Ethiopia 2 years ago. So we took the family. I have 3 boys and moved to Ethiopia, and from there I sort of travel 7 to 10 days a month. So I will either go back to Sweden where the office is, or I will go to Germany, or I will go wherever the beer takes us. And it's working out all right. Like, I was very nervous before I moved that everything was just going to collapse, but we have managed to recruit like a very, very good independent team. And so I almost sometimes think, since the company is doing better since I moved, I'm thinking it might have been a good thing, you know. So it's definitely and truly now like an international organization. We also had yesterday our newest recruit, which is a sales rep in the US. So he lives in New York and breathes and lives the Omnipollo brand every day. And I mean, it's a very exciting structure that we've come to over the years.
We wondered how you plan your year. Is a master plan for a year there, and then I go there, and then I visit this brewery, and we make this beer, or is it a emotional, spontaneous action?
Yeah, that's a very, very good question. I mean, my inclination is to be very spontaneous. So I will meet somebody at a festival, and then I just want to go to the brewery the day after. You know? But what's happening now is we're shifting to longer term planning as we grow, because my behavior as a brewer is putting a lot of stress on the organization. So it's like very quick moves and spontaneous. At the same time, the team and myself, we're realizing the spontaneous aspect of it is also important. So we're trying to plan it so that we'll have 70 to 80% long-term planning, and then like a component for spontaneous, quick, like agile movements. And so I mean, it's being tested right now. We're doing 6 months planning mostly, and then we're going to try to do up to 9 months of like actual beers being planned into the schedule. In terms of traveling, it's usually about 6 months out traveling.
And there's a brewer in your team.
Correct, yeah. So a year ago we employed like a technical brewer. His title would be like quality management type of, and he travels a lot too. So that's allowed us to. We basically woke up one day and said we're working with 12 different breweries. If we were to visit them even just once a year, that would be every month a new brewery. It's just too much. So having being more of us has really, really helped. And he also has a much more technical way of viewing the beer. So I will know, on a sense level what I want, or on an idea level, but he's actually able to translate that into something technical.
Do you taste the difference between the beers since he's in your team?
Yeah. I mean, one thing that's also has done is me sitting down in Ethiopia is a pretty tough seat to be in terms of sensory and trying and getting the beer and so on and so forth. But having him gather, package, consolidate, structure the different beers we do has actually allowed me to start tasting the beers much more regularly. So batch to batch, year over year, and so on and so forth. So that's been a huge improvement.
I heard when you send the list of the beers that the shops can order, you have to be very fast. So sometimes
to order.
Yeah, to order because
In German we say, bist du ein Star, macht sich rar.
it means you sometimes don't do the same beer twice or something like that. And we wondered, wouldn't it from a point of sales, would it be more interesting to have more of the beer and sell more of it, or is it just we make it once and it's more interesting if it's rare?
Yeah, we think about those things a lot now. I think before it was a resource thing, so we simply didn't have the cash to produce, twice as much barrel-aged beer.
Okay.
Now I think we're at a place where we can adjust more according to it's a quality or a specific ingredient will be the limitation, right? So if we say this is the batch size we want to make it because this is what we can handle. But it's we try to have our beers be available. It's like the idea of this was really to get as much beer into people's hands as we could. It just happens to be that the rarest stuff goes quickly. That's a tough equation to solve.
We wondered, you have cans and you have bottles. Is it a design, artistic decision, or which looks better, or is it a decision from the beer? What tastes better?
I think we're not very sentimental about the packaging format. We've always switched from one to the other based on what the market's asking for, and I think that it's happened in Europe much more now that quality craft beer comes in can, which is another movement from the US to Europe. For me personally, I like cans because they don't allow any light to shine through, and so the beer holds up better technically. And they're also just convenient. Just pop one open and drink it. If we do barrel-aged beers and so on, we'll do bottles because it just feels like a nice thing, It's more, I would say, a question of what the market is dictating in terms of packaging format.
And it looks really fancy in the can. It's pop art.
Yeah.
What you're doing.
That too, exactly. I mean, for Carl would probably say it's a nice canvas.
Sure.
Can rather than just a bottle. We've always screen printed our bottles anyway, so we've had quite a lot of space to play with. But cans for sure. I mean, it's a lot of. It strikes you. A lot of people ask, why not Berlin? And I think for us it's nice to be part of building something rather than just jumping in when everybody else is there. But I think that the biggest number one factor for us was we have a partner here that we're going to enjoy working with.
I think the decision is made for this. Brausturm is here in Hamburg, and so it's.
Since they are here, we've been here much more. And every time we come, a lot of people come to drink our beer, and they're very enthusiastic. So we're we go where the enthusiasts are.
Berlin is more international than Hamburg.
You have more expats there who know from the US.
But you have more beer companies there too. Like Mikkeller. What do you think about Mikkeller?
I love Mikko and his brand, the whole brand. I mean, we've been friends since very, very early. And I think we've just grown closer to each other over the years.
It's a similar mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I will consult him very regularly about stuff that he encounters, just because our companies are quite similar in how we operate. So I think that we were in Tokyo last week for his beer festival. So we try to support them. We feel they support us. It's a very good relationship.
Do you make the beers specifically for the markets? So it's different beers for the US than for Germany, and different beers for China.
We haven't been that sophisticated as a company. I mean, we've brewed literally exactly what we want to drink everywhere. And so even if a specific market asked for something, we're pretty, I would say, slow moving in that sense. We haven't been able to like deliver on like a need, like a hole in the market, you know. And so but I think what's started to happen is we're being more, since we're in 45 markets, we're realizing one product doesn't necessarily work everywhere, and so we've become better at like trying to pinpoint what our brand is in a specific market and try to fill that niche. Our portfolio is over 300 beers now, so it's pretty easy to take something from what we have and give it to a specific market now. Whereas before we had like 5 beers, and so it's like everybody had to have those 5 beers.
Do you remember the moment when you recognize this beer thing will work?
So there are 2 moments. One moment was the first time I went to one of these pubs that I used to work for in Sweden, and had a Swedish brewed American style pale ale from a very good brewery in Sweden called Omnipollos. They started out maybe a year earlier, and I just had it, and you know, you get that sensation the first time you have like a really good craft beer. It's like this is a completely different world from like all the other beers I've ever had before, and that was a defining moment in terms of like this will be what beer will look like in the future. It took another 5-6 years before Omnipollo was born, and I think one defining moment for us was we entered our second beer into a big beer festival. I think it was actually the biggest beer festival in Europe at the time, in Sweden, and there were 2,500 beers competing in a blind tasting against each other, and our beer came out as the winner.
Oh wow!
Beer and so, you know, we were a year and a half old as a company, and we got a lot of press, and the Swedish liquor monopoly, which is like a store chain in Sweden that sells beer or all liquor. They bought 15,000 bottles. I think they sold out in like a couple of hours. And I mean, it's just like the idea that, like I say, that's probably the clearest like moment I can remember. But then everything else is like 1 foot in front of me, small moves. Like this was a defining moment. Opening the bar.
The next step.
Yeah.
The next step.
No, but I mean, it's a very humbling feeling to see, you know, people from a completely different culture. We don't even speak German, like communicating with us about and through beer, right? So it's like the exact same idea about what beer should be, but just from different cultures, different countries. It's an amazing feeling.
What's your secret? What's the secret of Omnipollo? Is it the look of the beers? They look special. It's a colorful.
Absolutely. I think the single most important component of this journey is the relationship that I have with Karl. Like this yin and yang in terms of beer art just feeding into each other. Definitely. I think that we've tried, like his art has allowed me to like put forth beer styles that, you know, just we frankly were told wouldn't sell at all. So it's like, you know, we'll sell a wheat beer as quickly as we sell an IPA, as quickly as we sell a Pilsner. I think that very few like brewers are lucky enough to have that situation. You're sort of forced to just like focus on the, you know, popular styles. And so that's been very, very nice.
Your Instagram channel is crazy.
It's
great pics. I love it.
Thank you.
But sometimes I think, is it beer? There are traditional beer lovers here in Germany, in Bavaria especially. They hate your beer. Have you ever talked to someone like that? How can you do that to beer?
No, and I respect that. I think it's an important part of beer culture because I like and enjoy it.
We call it a Reinheitsgebot.
No, for sure. And I think it's a wonderful thing. I think it's important, and I think that we should focus on what we're good at. Like I'm not a great lager brewer. I try to become one, you know, but if I was just doing that, I don't think we would contribute with anything to the floor. Like, we're all about variety, and I think that I'm very happy that there are principles guiding people, right?
Yeah.
So we have other principles than that, but we're also very, very fond as consumers about these beers. Very, very sort of traditional brewers create wonderful things. I hope they never change. To be honest.
It looks like a big playground.
Yeah, it's become that way. Yeah.
Is it even now a playground, or?
Yeah, we try to. I mean, it's a bigger beast. It's a bigger company now, with potential of losing.
You have to earn money, more invest,
Definitely.
more pressure.
Definitely. I mean, if we make a mistake, which we do all the time now, it costs us more in terms of everything. Trying not to overly focus on that and becoming, scared of doing things is like it's a challenge that we're facing. But I think we still manage to get like fresh ideas and blood into the company as we've grown, and so people that come in, they have a very clear idea about what Omnipollo is already, because they've seen it and experienced it, and oftentimes been friends of ours for many years. And so I think the guiding principle keeps on pushing us to be more playful, even as we grow. I think it's important. I think it's very important. It's a very good question that you're asking. Playfulness is definitely a part of Omnipollo's DNA, and I think that it being not snobby, but smart is our dream somehow, and I think that. I hope we're going to be able to sustain that over the long term.
There have to be fun.
Yeah, for sure. Fun, and I think just to a certain extent intuitive. So we'll in terms of concepts for the beer, we try to approach it as though a child would understand what we're trying to communicate. There might be undertones or even political messaging, or Karl's art usually has a lot of layers. But from the beer perspective, I want my sons to be able to understand when I tell them this is a milkshake beer. They will understand what that is. And so sometimes it becomes a bit, people tend to complicate things a little bit extra. It's hard to keep it simple sometimes, but I think it's important for our brand.
Where there has to be a slush machine. What about the ice machine?
Yeah. No, I mean, these are the exact things. I mean, we've brewed a series of ice cream inspired beers 5 years ago, I believe, and in that process we were also opening our first bar, Omnipollos in Stockholm. And Karl was in Tokyo, Japan, for a work trip. And he sent me a picture of this slushy beer that I believe it was Kirin at the time, and they still do, had developed so that you could grab your beer in a sports arena, for example, and walk all the way back to your seat without it becoming warm, right? Yeah. So it's like a technical innovation. And I figured that's, it's brilliant, especially for an ice cream inspired beer series. So we just started serving it that way in our bar, and people went crazy. People went crazy.
At St. Pauli, Millantor, it's too expensive, I think. Yeah, But okay, now I understand. You said there are 12 breweries.
Yeah, roughly, yeah.
Okay. Are there favorites?
You
love most? Can you tell us? Perhaps they don't listen to this podcast.
No, but I can definitely tell you that, and I mean it's the heart of our operation has for a very long time been a brewery in Belgium called the Proof. And it's a professor, a brewing school professor that started a brewery many years ago, which I happened to come in contact with the first year of Omnipollo, which was also a year when I was living in Brussels. So my wife, who works in the MFA, she had a job in Brussels at the time.
Okay.
And his name is Dirk Notz, and we've hit it off early on. I would say he's the single most important partner that we've had on the brewing side, and still is. We probably produce 60% of the beer that you see at that brewery?
We were in Eindhoven some weeks ago, and there's a brewery or a beer label called Van Mol, and they also brew their core range is brewed there.
At the proof, yeah. So this was a very small operation when we met them the first time in 2010, and now it's grown in a fantastic way. It's amazing. It's a family-run business, and they live in the brewery. But they used to have like a decent small flat in the brewery, and now it's just grown. I mean, it's fantastic to come back there and see.
Cool.
Besides that, we also brew a lot of our dark beers so we try to choose based on style. And dark barrel-aged beers, a lot is brewed in the Netherlands at a brewery called De Molen. Maybe you've heard of it. And Menno, the brewer and owner of that brewery, has been a very close friend and supporter from early days for us. So it's a wonderful continuing relationship over time. All the beers that we sell in the US, almost, are brewed at 3 different breweries in the US. And that's also a nice benefit of working the way that we have, is that we don't have to send bottles over the Atlantic back and forth. It's brewed there and consumed there. And then we have 2 breweries in Sweden, one in Gothenburg and one in Stockholm, where we brew a lot of beers for the Swedish market. And so on and so forth. We've also had a brewery in Brazil where we brewed beer for Brazil for a while, and it sort of keeps on evolving.
Will there be a own brewery one time?
I think so, yeah. I think so. I mean, we're realizing that as the beer scene keeps on evolving, attention to detail is very important. It can't just be conceptually worked through. It has to be very well executed. And I think that we're at a level where some of our beers needs to be produced by ourselves, because they're very, very sort of small variations can make a very big difference. Like the barrel-aged beers and so on and so forth. I think over time that the top end of the segment will be produced by ourselves.
It's another story at this point.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Is it a playground then?
That's a very good question. I think that it's all dependent on us having that type of competence in-house, and I think that our brewer that we employed a year ago will be a key element of something like that. It would not be good for me creatively to be in one location every day brewing away. It needs to be well thought through in terms of organization around it. We're not we try to seize opportunities when they arrive. Every time we've tried to push something, we need a bar in Germany, or it just doesn't. My experience is it hasn't turned out as well as when we just sort of wait for an opportunity to arrive that feels right. And I think a brewery will be something like that. It will be something that we grow into over time.
It's serious then.
No, for sure. It's definitely.
I don't know.
Definitely. Our friend Jeppe, so Mikkel's brother, he opened the brewery now a couple of months ago in New York, after having done exactly what we do for 10 years. We started out the exact same time, and you can definitely see that he's been more stressed. The beer's tasting great though, so it shouldn't be.
The island?
Yeah, we always got a last question.
Yes.
Which is, what's your desert island beer?
Oh wow. I think it would be hard to just choose one, but I think that the most multifaceted beer I've ever had is brewed by Belgian monks, and it's a beer called Orval. And the reason for that is that it's both complex, but it can also be refreshing. It also develops over time, so I'd probably bring a bunch of them and then drink it over time. I mean, it just becomes better and better. So that would be my desert island.
Good choice.
Different strategies.
I'd love to hear what the other people have said.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Tja, ein schönes Gespräch in einem unschönen Audio-Environment, sag ich mal.
Das ist schon eine Herausforderung.
Ja, also wir hoffen, ihr seid hier auch angekommen und hört jetzt wieder unsere Stimmen.
Man kann uns nicht vorwerfen, wir hätten die Hörer nicht gewarnt. Dennoch, es ist ein bisschen unangenehm. Ich muss jedoch sagen, dieser Mann kam schon mit gepackter Tasche und musste irgendwann auch zu seinem Flieger. Und wir hatten dann doch, und ich finde durchaus begründet, Skrupel, ihn von Location zu schleppen. Der hatte auch noch nicht gefrühstückt und brauchte auch irgendwie seinen Kaffee. Und Leute, was sollen wir sagen? Manchmal muss es dann halt, da muss man dann durch. Ja. Es tut uns leid.
Ja, genau. Aber ich glaube, die Message kommt rüber und was für ein sweeter, netter Typ.
Total unkompliziert.
Ja.
Ich selber finde Omnipollo-Biere ja total spannend. Ich muss aber sagen, dass sie mir manchmal einen Tick zu sehr drüber sind, obwohl ich nicht zu denen gehöre, die jetzt so puritanisch drauf sind, was Bierstile angeht. Also so ganz klassisch. Also ich glaube, für den klassischen Bierliebhaber sind sie wirklich der Teufel persönlich. Also die meiden die Marke auch wie der Teufel das Weihwasser.
Ja klar, also die sind ja auch schon so weit vom Reinheitsgebot entfernt teilweise, dass sie auf der anderen Seite wieder ankommen. So.
Ja, auf der anderen Seite haben diese Biere ja was wahnsinnig verspielt Schönes, wenn man sie sich anguckt, so von der Farbe. Und
ja, das Design von den Flaschen ist natürlich auch der totale Hammer. Das Auge trinkt ja auch mit.
Ja, die haben natürlich auch ihren Preis. Darüber haben wir auch in diesem Podcast gesprochen. Falls ihr es verstanden habt, wir haben auch über den Preis gesprochen. Wer schon mal in Schweden war, der weiß, dort ist Bier auch nicht so das billigste Lebensmittel. Also das hat schon durchaus einen guten Preis teilweise.
Ja.
Und auch die Biere in dem Pub hier im Omnipollos, das ja jetzt, wie wir schon gesagt haben, in der Anmoderation hier eröffnet hat, sind nicht alle ganz günstig. Pizza so um die 10 €, das ist okay. Oh, schauen wir mal, was draus wird. Aber ich muss sagen, in dieser Stadt tut sich biertechnisch ja so viel, das ist schon spannend.
Ja, das macht uns tatsächlich sehr viel Freude. Also seitdem wir angefangen haben mit dem Podcast vor 2 Jahren, ist echt wahnsinnig viel passiert. Was toll ist.
Das ist wirklich super.
Ja.
Jetzt müssen wir nur zusehen, dass wir nicht immer der heißesten Tablist hinterherjagen, sondern unsere Lieblingsbars stützen. Ich bin ein großer Fan von nicht nur den heißen Bieren hinterherjagen, sondern unterstützt eure Brauer und eure Bars, weil das sind die Leute, das sind eure Gastgeber und die meinen es gut mit euch.
Support local drinking.
Yes. Schönen Gruß an Francesco.
Ja.
Wir haben Biere verkostet und wir haben das Lieblingsbier von Henok verkostet.
Ja, glücklicherweise, als ich den Podcast fertig gemacht habe hier, ich hatte tatsächlich verdrängt, dass das Orval sein Lieblingsbier war. Und ich dachte, Mensch, so eins haben wir doch noch im Keller, das könnten wir gleich ganz passend verkosten. Das passt natürlich toll, genau. Zu den Bieren. Das Orval, ein Trappistenbier. Das einzige außerhalb des Klosters von Orval, was man bekommen kann. Und ja, was haben wir? Wir haben einen ziemlich stabilen, feinporigen Schaum. Wir haben eine Farbe, die eher so an eine trübe Spezie erinnert. Leicht fruchtiger Geruch, eher dunkle Früchte. Das ist ziemlich trocken insgesamt, muss man sagen. Es ist ziemlich rezent, wir haben eine leichte Säure hinten raus. Es legt sich dann am Ende so bitter auf die Zunge. Aber so von der Erwartungshaltung her hätte ich das süßer und schwerer erwartet.
Stimme ich dir zu?
No?
Ja, ich finde es verblüffend, das ist ja dann doch ein klassisches Bier, das Brauer wie jetzt zum Beispiel Henok, der ja doch für eher die experimentellen Bierstile steht, sich dann bei dem Inselbier für so ein klassisches Bier entscheidet. Mhm. Aber er ist daher nicht alleine. Ich war bei dem Beer-Food-Pairing, bei dem Dinner von der Brewing Association in Berlin, bei der amerikanischen Botschaft zu Gast. Und dort saß ich neben Matthew von Firestone Walker und auch er war ein großer Fan der deutschen Pilsener.
Ja, und dann so Leute, die auch abgefahrenes Zeug machen, die dann doch zu den Klassikern zurückkommen, weil sie vielleicht auch wissen, wie schwer es ist, so einen Klassiker zu brauen.
Du hast ja auch mal einen Pilz gebraut.
Ich habe auch mal einen Pilz gebraut, das schmeckte auch nach allem, bloß nicht nach Pilz.
Machst du noch mal?
Ich werde es vielleicht tun, ja. Ich bin noch unsicher. Ich reize gerade den obergärigen Bereich etwas stärker aus.
Wir haben jetzt einen 3. Kühlschrank. Du könntest mal wieder in die untergärige Nummer gehen.
Ja, ich gucke mal, was ich tue. Leider wird es in unserem Keller nicht kalt im Winter. Insofern muss man da immer schauen, was man tut. Ich bleibe dran an dem Thema.
Wir bleiben dran. Wir bleiben auch dran, indem wir einfach nochmal das zweite Bier
Genau, das
hier vorstellen.
Lakritzbier von der, wie spricht man es aus? Nia Brüggerie? Nia Brüggerie aus Göteborg. Ein Dark Lager mit Lakritz. Ja, interessantes Ding irgendwie. Natürlich dunkle Biere immer sehr schön im Winter. Wir haben Genau. Wir haben ein sehr dunkles Braun, stabilen, feinporigen Schaum. So vom Geruch her habe ich nichts von Lakritz gerochen.
Es drängte sich nicht auf.
Nee, überhaupt nicht. Es war halt eher so ein bisschen rauchig, ein bisschen süßlich. Vielleicht ein bisschen malzig, kann man sagen. Tja, dann kommt es dann aber. Der süß im Antrunk. Erstmal recht leicht, fand ich, ein bisschen wässrig, aber dann legt sich der Lakritz auf die Zunge. Und erstmal so ein süßer Lakritz und dann hinten raus wird es aber eher erwachsen. Ne? So diese erwachsenen Lakritzen, wo mein Sohn die Augen verdrehen würde.
Also ich habe jetzt ein dunkles Lager in Berlin getrunken, im Hotel The Circus oder im Hostel The Circus. Die haben dann eine kleine Mikrobrauerei, so eine Mikrobrauerei im Keller stehen in Berlin-Mitte. Und das schmeckte einfach wie so ein aufgelöster Malzbonbon. Fand ich das weitaus reizvoller und cooler.
Ja, fand ich auch. Also auf jeden Fall etwas, also das würde ich durchaus auch nochmal trinken. So, es ist auch nicht, wir haben auch schon mal, du hast dich noch dran erinnert, so ganz dunkel hatte ich es im Hinterkopf mal ein Lakritzbier gehabt, was wir gar nicht mochten.
Auf dem Craftbeermarkt hier in Hamburg, mir ist allerdings die Brauerei
weiß ich auch nicht mehr.
im Moment auch nicht mehr im Kopfe.
Aber dieses Lakritz war lecker. Also nochmal vielen Dank an Sündi Nikolaisen für die edle Spende.
Jawohl. Kommen wir zu den Terminen. Da geht der kleine Kuckuck wieder steil. Ich habe den Namen dieses Bieres rausgefunden, das am Donnerstag, den 7. November 2019, geköpft wird im neuen Omnipollos Hamburg, der ersten Omnipollo-Bar außerhalb von Schweden, hier in Hamburg. Pass auf, es heißt Bourbon Barrel Aged Anagram Blueberry Cheesecake Imperial Stout.
Das ist mal ein Name, ne?
Vielleicht kann man mir jetzt nochmal verzeihen, dass ich den gerade eben wirklich nur ganz grob zusammengestückelt habe.
Das sind ja mehr Namen als bei Theodor Freiherr zu Guttenberg mit den ganzen Vornamen.
Mir ist der Zeitpunkt des Starts dieser Party leider gerade nicht geläufig. Ich glaube, es war sehr früh, 18 Uhr. Es ist ein ganz kleines Fass, schrieb der Omnipollo-Partner Brausturm. Also insofern, ich sag mal, der frühe Vogel kippt das Glas.
Fängt das Bier.
Wir sagten ja schon 15 Volumenprozent Alkohol. Holla die Waldfee, würde eine gute Freundin von uns sagen. Oder Heidewitzka. Nächster Termin, das ist 12. bis 14. November 2019, findet statt in Nürnberg. Wer weiß es genau. Es ist die Braubiviale. Wir haben Premiere in diesem Jahr. Nicht, dass wir da was vorführen würden, aber wir sind zu Gast immerhin in diesem Jahr.
Auch das erste Mal in Nürnberg.
Auch das? Also, falls jemand, der das hört, da unterwegs ist, schreibt uns gerne an. Vielleicht kriegt man da was zustande. Vielleicht
man könnte ja zum Beispiel
Bierchen oder so.
Ganz abgefahren Bier zusammen trinken oder sowas.
Ja, warum nicht?
Wir sind da auch ganz gesellig.
Genau. Prima. Dann haben wir das ja auch geklärt. Wir freuen uns über Zuschriften unter cheers@hopcast.de. Und ansonsten, wenn ihr kennt uns an Stefans Lache, die wurde bereits mehrfach wiedererkannt in irgendwelchen Bars. Also Ohren auf, wenn da jemand so lacht, das könnte Stefan sein, der ist da auch zu Gast. Dann Wechsel nach Bayreuth. 14.11.2019, Brewers Night with Sierra Nevada in der Meisels Biererlebniswelt. Hast du rausgesucht?
Habe ich rausgesucht.
Du wirst da nicht zu Gast sein?
Ich denke nicht, nein. In Bayreuth war ich auch noch nie.
Auch nicht zu den Festspielen?
Nee.
Ist auch nicht deine Musikrichtung. Da ist, glaube ich, der E-Bass auch nicht so gefragt.
Den gibt es da gar nicht, aber trotzdem wummert es untenrum ganz gut beim alten Herrn Wagner.
So, es wummert untenrum. Ich mach mal weiter. 15.11.2019, Tap Takeover mit Toöl in der Landgang-Brauerei hier in Hamburg, in Bahrenfeld. Das sind die Termine. Wir melden uns baldigst wieder. Der nächste Podcast ist nämlich schon fertig. Und dieses Mal wieder mit einer Dame. Ich freue mich total, wenn wir auch immer mal wieder Frauen hier zu Wort kommen lassen. Denn nach wie vor ist diese Szene doch stark männergeprägt, auch wenn da viele Frauen aktiv sind. Insofern freue ich mich drauf. Das wird ein super Podcast. Ihr könnt uns folgen in Social Media auf, du weißt es auch,
hopcast.de.
Ja, das ist unsere Website.
Ach so,
Social Media.
Jetzt ist mir wieder aufgefallen, dass ich davon überhaupt keine Ahnung habe. Verdammte
Hopcast.de ist tatsächlich unsere Homepage. Die ist auch total schön. Da findet ihr unter anderem die Links zu dieser Folge, die Termine, die verkosteten Biere, die Inselbiere und Fotos zu dieser Folge und noch eine kleine Zusammenfassung auch zu den anderen Podcast-Folgen. Bierreisetipps, Buchtipps und so weiter. Dann gibt es aber noch dieses berühmte Social Media. Dort sind wir auf, zweiter Versuch?
Instagram?
Ja, weiter.
Ja. Falls ihr euch also fragt, wer bei uns die Social Media Arbeit macht, irgendwie hat sich das gerade beantwortet.
Ja, auf Facebook bist du auch aktiv. Das ist
stimmt.
der zweite Kanal, wo wir uns rumtreiben. Folgt uns dort gerne. Wir sind zu hören auf Spotify, auf podcast.de, unter anderem auf Apple Podcasts, auf Google Podcasts. Auch das ist aufgeführt auf unserer Homepage.
Soundcloud.
Genau, auf Soundcloud. Und wenn euch dieser Podcast gefällt, dann nehmt euch doch bitte die Zeit, diesen zu bewerten, denn das ist sozusagen die Währung im Internet. Ganz viel Liebe und Sternchen und Herzchen und Bewertung. Warum? Das hilft uns, sichtbarer zu werden und darüber freuen wir uns natürlich total, denn wir möchten natürlich auch, dass möglichst viele Menschen die Kunde von gutem Bier hören, damit auch immer mehr Menschen gutes Bier trinken. Also gerne bewerten, weiterempfehlen und abonnieren. Das freut uns wahnsinnig. Vielen Dank dafür. Haben wir noch was?
Nee. Wir haben noch die Möglichkeit, uns zu verabschieden.
Das können wir damit tun.
Genau.
Danke fürs Zuhören. Wir sagen
Tschüssikowski, bis dann Niemanski.
und Ahoi.
Komm, wir reden über Bier, ob in Flensburg oder Trier, denn wir alle lieben Bier.
Warum eigentlich Trier?
Ja, wegen des Reims.